For decades, one name has echoed through the halls of anime villainy, a name synonymous with pure, unadulterated evil, Frieza. He's the galactic tyrant, the planet destroyer, the monster who pushed Son Goku to become a legend. He is, for millions, the undisputed pinnacle of antagonism in Dragon Ball Z. But what if I told you that this entire time we've been celebrating the wrong villain? What if the series' most iconic bad guy is actually a one-note bully whose legacy is built more on shock value than substance? Today, we're not just challenging a popular opinion, we're rewriting the history books. We are going to meticulously dismantle the myth of Frieza's supremacy and crown the true king of villainy in the Dragon Ball Z universe, the terrifying, the strategic, a flawless biological android, Perfect Cell. In this deep dive, we'll expose why Frieza, for all his terrifying power, is a surprisingly shallow character who ultimately served as a mere stepping stone for a greater narrative. We will then journey into the shadows to uncover how Cell's very creation represents a chilling reckoning with the hero's own past, turning their greatest strengths into their ultimate nightmare. And most critically, we will demonstrate how the entire Cell Saga was a masterclass in storytelling that focused on legacy, evolution, and the profound passing of a sacred torch, achieving a narrative depth that the Frieza saga could only dream of. Prepare yourselves because the verdict is in, and you can't change our minds. Let's begin with the icon himself, the Emperor of Universe 7. There is no denying the monumental, planet-shattering impact of Frieza. When he and his forces arrived on the scene, Dragon Ball transformed. The stakes, which were once about winning the World Martial Arts Tournament or stopping a comical demon king from taking over the Earth, skyrocketed into a cosmic opera of life and death across the galaxy. Frieza was evil incarnate. He took a refined, sadistic pleasure in the suffering of others, ruling his planet trade organization with an iron fist clad in a velvet glove. Conquering, cleansing, and selling planets was just business as usual for him, a Tuesday. He was the embodiment of absolute power and the chilling terror it inspires. His saga on planet Namek is legendary for a reason. The sense of dread was palpable. We watched in utter horror as he effortlessly dispatched our heroes one by one. He toyed with them, he mocked them, and he systematically broke them down, not just physically, but spiritually. The fight against Frieza gave us some of the most memorable moments in the entire franchise. Vegeta's tearful, desperate final plea to Goku to avenge their Saiyan race, Piccolo's heroic sacrifice to save Gohan, and, of course, the single most iconic transformation in anime history. When Frieza, in a fit of cruel glee, murdered Krillin, Goku's best friend, right before his eyes, he didn't just kill a character, he unleashed a god. The rage-fueled birth of the Super Saiyan is a moment cemented in pop culture forever, and Frieza was the direct catalyst. He was the ultimate challenge that unlocked the ultimate power-up, and for that, he absolutely deserves his place in the Hall of Fame. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Being a great catalyst does not make you a great character. Once you look past the impressive power level and the undeniable historical significance of his defeat, Frieza's character is remarkably thin. His entire motivation boils down to two primal urges: domination and fear. He wants to rule everything, and he wants everyone to be terrified of him. He seeks immortality not for some grander purpose or complex philosophy, but simply to perpetuate his reign of terror indefinitely, a narcissistic desire to never die. He is the textbook shonen villain, a force of nature to be overcome. The narrative treated him as such. The final battle on the dying planet Namek, as epic as it was fundamentally a one-man show. It was the Goku show, featuring Frieza as the final boss. The development was almost entirely focused on our protagonist's journey. The rest of the Z-Fighters, brave as they were for the most part relegated to the role of glorified punching bags, existing only to demonstrate Frieza's overwhelming power and to fuel Goku's eventual rage. Frieza is petty. He kills when challenged, he destroys planets when angered. He's a galactic emperor throwing a perpetual genocidal temper tantrum. Even with his dramatic return and flashy new golden form in Dragon Ball Super, his character remains fundamentally the same. He's still the arrogant tyrant, just with a new coat of paint. He doesn't evolve, he just gets stronger. And that is where his greatness ends and his profound limitations begin. Because while Frieza was perfecting the art of being a cosmic bully, a far more insidious and complex evil was gestating in the ruins of the Red Ribbon Army's ambition.
An evil that didn't just want to conquer the heroes, it wanted to become them. Enter Cell. Cell's introduction is pure, unadulterated science fiction horror. He isn't a conquering emperor arriving on a pristine spaceship. He's a disgusting, bug-like humanoid monster emerging from a time machine in a grotesque, imperfect larval state. He doesn't command armies, he stalks his victims in the dead of night, moving through silent cities like a ghost, a terrifying predator who dissolves people into organic goo with his tail, absorbing their very life force to grow stronger. The image of entire towns full of empty clothes, with no bodies to be found, is more chilling than any of Frieza's planet-destroying energy balls. He is a creature of nightmare fuel, but his true terror lies in his origin. Cell was created by Dr. Giro's supercomputer, a posthumous act of vengeance against Goku. But how? By using the DNA of the greatest fighters the world had ever known. The very cells of Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, and Piccolo flowed through his veins. Goku's drive for battle, Vegeta's pride, Piccolo's cunning. More than that, the computer also gathered data from Frieza and his father, King Cold, from their fateful trip to Earth, granting him their resilience and cruelty. Even the DNA of fighters like Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha were part of his genetic makeup. He is, quite literally, a walking, talking culmination of every major battle the Z fighters had ever fought. His existence is a direct consequence of their entire history. Their power, their techniques, their very legacy were harvested and twisted into this monstrous form. The idea that the heroes literally created their own worst enemy is just bone-chillingly brilliant. If you agree this is one of the best villain origins ever, do us a favor and hit that like button. Cell's goal, in stark contrast to Frieza's, was never about galactic domination. It was about something far more personal and unnerving: perfection. His entire existence was a quest to absorb androids 17 and 18 to achieve his perfect form. He wasn't driven by a lust for power in the same way Frieza was. He was driven by a biological imperative to complete himself. And as he evolved, so did his character. He transformed from a desperate, cunning creature fighting for survival in his imperfect form to a brutish and overconfident warrior in his semi-perfect form, and finally, to a supremely confident, calm, and intelligent tactician in his perfect form. Unlike Frieza, who was always the same petulant tyrant, Cell grew. He matured. He learned from his mistakes. He became more strategic, more patient, and infinitely more dangerous. Once he achieved perfection, his goal shifted again. It wasn't to destroy the Earth, though he was certainly capable of it. It was to test the limits of his newfound perfection. And how do you do that? You host a tournament, the Cell Games. This singular act elevates him far beyond Frieza. Frieza would have just blown up the planet and moved on. Cell, a true warrior composed of Saiyan DNA, craved a real challenge. He gave the world 10 days to prepare its greatest champions. He built a beautiful arena. He broadcast the event to the entire world, not just to spread fear, but to put on the greatest show in history. He was a performer, a tactician, and a master of psychological warfare. He didn't just want to win. He wanted to prove he was flawless against the very best his genetic ancestors had to offer. And this is the most critical difference. The Cell Saga was about everyone. It was about legacy, it was about evolution. Every single Z fighter had a role to play and a moment to shine. We saw Piccolo bravely face him, Vegeta unleash his final flash in a desperate blaze of glory, and even Tien Shin Han risk his own life to hold him back with the Neo Tri-Beam.
Future Trunks, representing a ruined timeline, fought with everything he had to prevent his future from becoming everyone's present. And then there was Goku. In a moment of incredible humility and wisdom, Goku, the man who defeated Frieza, fought Cell, and conceded defeat. He stepped out of the ring and admitted that Cell was someone he could not defeat on his own. This was unheard of. It wasn't a one-man show anymore. It was a story about the collective, about passing the torch. Goku wasn't fighting for his own pride. He was betting the fate of the world on the next generation. He was betting on his son, Gohan. The entire saga builds to this one perfect conclusion. Frieza's defeat gave us a new power level. Cell's defeat gave us a new hero. Gohan, the reluctant warrior with immense hidden potential since he was 4 years old, was always destined for greatness. But it was Cell who forced it out of him. Cell was the perfect villain for Gohan's arc. He didn't just provoke him, he systematically dismantled him psychologically. He tormented his friends with the Cell Juniors, trying to force out his rage. And then, in an act of cold, calculated cruelty, he crushed the head of the peaceful android 16, whose final words about protecting the world he loved were the catalyst that finally shattered Gohan's gentle spirit and unleashed the awesome power of Super Saiyan 2. Frieza killing Krillin was an act of petty anger. Cell's actions were a deliberate, strategic push to force his opponent to their absolute peak just to see what would happen. He wanted Gohan's full power, and he got it. The ensuing battle, culminating in the legendary father-son Kamehameha, is arguably the most emotionally resonant and cathartic moment in all of Dragon Ball. It's Gohan, embracing his power and his destiny, supported by the spirit of his father, overpowering the villain who embodied all of their past struggles. Even then, it was Vegeta's final, pride-swallowing blast that distracted Cell, giving Gohan the opening he needed. It was teamwork to the very end. That father-son Kamehameha is one of the most legendary moments in all of anime, and it wouldn't exist without a villain as perfect as Cell. If you want more deep dives into your favorite anime moments that explore this level of detail, make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on so you don't miss a thing. So, let's bring it all home. Frieza is an A-tier villain. He is iconic, terrifying, and essential to the Dragon Ball story. But he is ultimately a simple character, a hurdle to be overcome. He was a trial by fire. Cell is something more. He is a reckoning. He was a trial by mirror. He represents the story's past, the consequences of the Z-Fighters' endless battles, and the chilling idea of what happens when their own power is turned against them. Frieza forced Goku to evolve. Cell forced the entire world of Dragon Ball to evolve, passing the mantle of protector from one generation to the next. He wasn't just an antagonist, he was a mirror, reflecting the hero's own strength, their flaws, and their potential. He was a strategic, evolving, and far more nuanced threat who provided a richer, more satisfying narrative for every single character involved. So while Frieza may be the tyrant we all love to hate, Cell is the villain Dragon Ball Z truly deserved. And that, you can't change my mind, is what makes him the best. Period.